Well, hi there.
Well, hi there. I'm here today with Emily from Snake Discovery, who you may have heard of before because she's got the coolest channel on all of YouTube. And some rockin' snakes because Emily is going to share with us the 5 species of snakes that she enjoys keeping the very most of all.
If I was stuck on a desert island and I could only choose 5, these would be the 5. As you can probably guess, one of my favorites, and probably my favorite species of all, are the western hognose snakes. I will always have hognose snakes with me. They're just so unique with their adaptations. Like, they're just different between their upturned snout, which looks like they ran into a glass door, to their enlarged rear fangs, and even their defense mechanisms. They are just super, super cool.
I think this is a killer choice. I love that you said this is maybe your favorite of all snakes, because I think most people would have assumed bull snakes were your favorite of all snakes.
We're getting to those, but yeah, well, you'll see what I mean.
I feel exactly the same way, because there are a few species of snakes that I know I love the most, and this one might be my very favorite of all. Even though when I first came across hognose snakes, I did not like the way they looked. Since then, they have grown on me. I think it was really the first time I saw one in person instead of just a picture in Reptiles magazine. All of a sudden I was like, oh my goodness, that is...
They're so cool.
So neat, and I love them, and I, just like you, like if I could only keep one species of snake, it might be hogs.
Yes.
It might be hogs.
And they come in so many color mutations nowadays, both pattern morphs and color morphs. Like, this is what you would, of course, find in the wild. Actually, where we live, we have western hognoses right here, since you're not from this area. We get these. We're lucky enough to have these out in our backyards, and this is what they would look like in the wild. Whereas some of the morphs that are out there are just stunning, like this albino twin spot. Her name is Charlotte.
Twin spots.
Yeah, they have, pairs of spots instead of one larger dorsal spot down the middle. Yeah, just stunning snakes. And they don't get terribly large either. Like, if you want a good pet snake that you don't need a 5 by 2 foot enclosure for, hognoses are great. Honestly, a male could be kept in a 10-gallon tank or a similar sized bin, or a female could be kept really in a 20 long or similar sized tote. So they don't need much space either.
They're just so perfect. They are, in very many ways, I think, the perfect pet snake. And actually, I grew up in Colorado, and we have western hognose snakes
Do you really?
there too.
They're down there?
But I never encountered one in the wild. I have friends, though, who just recently went out to not very far from where I grew up, and they ran into a bunch of them.
Nice.
So I must have been looking in the wrong place. I grew up by a lake, and we had a lot of bull snakes, and we had a lot of garter snakes, but I never once ran into a hog, and I always wanted to. And they're even cooler than I ever dreamed.
I love that when they're scared and, they're playing dead, if you pick one up and flip it so it's right side up, it'll go right back onto its back to assure you that it's very dead. Like, these are the drama queens in the snake world, and it's just hilarious.
And I heard an interesting hypothesis about that, because they do that for animals that joyfully eat dead snakes. And there is a hypothesis that because these guys are toad eaters, that what they're doing is they're rolling over and showing kind of an aposematically colored belly, because a lot of times they're very orange and black on their belly. That one's super black, but usually they're like orange and black on their belly, and they're exposing all of their moist tissues so that animals can smell the toad toxins in them, because they're things that smell really well, like raccoons and dogs. These are the main things that they'll do this for. And it's just a hypothesis at this point, but this may actually be a poisonous snake in addition to being a venomous snake.
Wow.
Which is stinking rad.
That is rad. The one drawback to these snakes would be how picky of eaters they can be. Since they are specialized toad eaters, I mean, they really can be tough to get eating in captivity. Mine, thankfully, these two, as you can see with how chunky they are fantastic eaters for me. But when we breed hognose snakes, there's a decent percentage of them that will refuse any unscented frozen thawed rodent. We have to either toad scent them, or sometimes they only eat live. Sometimes they'll only eat salmon or tuna scented mice. So when it comes to what my favorite species is to breed, it would not be the hognose snake. That's because my second top 5 species to keep and my number 1 species to breed would be bull snakes. I love bull snakes. They are, unlike hognose snakes, they are fantastic eaters. They will eat all the time, anytime, anywhere. This bull snake, the one that you're holding, her name is Hannah. I bring her to programs, and she's been not really trained, but accustomed, I guess, to eating rodents in front of kids at the shows.
That's so cool.
Yeah, they'll eat whenever. I mean, they are prone to getting overweight because of this, because owners will feed them maybe a little bit too much. But if you monitor their weight and feed them at a regular rate, then they're fine. I also love their attitudes. Like, they're sassy.
Oh, yeah.
And I absolutely love it. These guys waste no time at all buzzing their tail if they are the least bit afraid or threatened. And I think it's kind of cool. But one thing I forgot to mention about feeding was we will send a baby bull snake home to their new owners, and the owners will contact us asking, when should I offer it its first meal? And we'll respond with, try tonight.
Yeah.
And they eat every time. They eat the same night that they were shipped to, like, across the country to a new home. That's how good of eaters they are. They also come in a huge variety of color morphs. This one is a hypo-albino, and his name is Mr. Wilson. He's the father to most of the clutches that we breed currently. And that is Hannah. She is just a wild type, kind of a Minnesota, Wisconsin locale. She came from Brad and Janet before he passed away. She was part of their first clutch, and we decided to hold back quite a few of those babies.
They're super beautiful. I grew up, like I said, in Colorado, and we had bull snakes as well, but they didn't look quite like this one. The patterning was very, very much different, but they are so fun. I love them, and I have gopher snakes, which are closely related, but they're just not as heavy-bodied, and I do love the thick, chunky bull snake. It's one of my favorite native snakes for sure, and you might have sold me. I think I might need to have a bull snake in my life again. And you've bred some really awesome ones.
We have some hatching right now that are really cool.
I can't wait to see those.
They also move around a lot, as you can see, and they do this in their enclosures too. They use just about every inch of their enclosure, which, I mean, you do have to give them a pretty good size habitat for them to stretch out and explore. But they will use all of that space, so they're a great display animal too.
You're right, this might be the perfect snake.
A lot of breeders will like power feed young bull snakes to make them grow faster and so they can breed them sooner, but we both know that's not good. And they'll get them to the point though where their top looks like a loaf of bread. Have you ever seen that?
Not in person.
Like super fat bull snakes. Like, we try to keep ours, on at a really good weight, but since they eat so much, they can get overweight.
I'm glad that you warned us about that, because that is tempting. It's hard when a snake eats that well not to feed it every time it looks hungry.
Well, I mean, when you have a living garbage disposal without any legs, if you have another snake that doesn't eat, you just are tempted to give it to the bull snake because they'll eat it. So what we often do is we won't thaw any food for the bull snakes, and we'll just, any leftover food from the other snakes, we just plan on using that for their meals.
That's how I feed my boas.
Nice.
My boas are leftover ball pythons.
So a lot of people associate me with reptiles, especially snakes.
That's odd.
I know, I was channeling snake discovery. You'd think it'd be like gophers or I don't know. But anyway.
Go for it.
Yes. But one of my favorite species of animals of all time would actually be macaws.
Which are dinosaurs.
That's true. So reptiles still?
Oh,
I
absolutely.
suppose?
Absolutely.
Yeah. This is Cheyenne. She is our blue and gold macaw. And she's scared of guys, so she's going to stay as far away from you as possible. I'm sorry.
I won't take it personally.
She likes Ed, but he's the only guy that she likes.
Who could help it?
So we have actually talked it over. We will always have a macaw, even after she passes, which won't be for a very long time, because she's only 20, and they live to, 75 or 80 or so.
So 50 years down the road, you're preparing for your next macaw?
Yes, we are.
Gotcha.
We actually are being willed a hyacinth macaw possibly someday. So in the
What do those
future,
look like?
They're royal blue, and they have yellow rings around their eyes and around their beaks.
Oh, I know exactly what those are. Oh,
they're
those are
gorgeous.
so beautiful.
They're the largest of macaws, and they are very expensive, unfortunately. Otherwise, we probably would have one. But someday, we might have one in the future, like a little sneak peek. Anyway, I really like macaws because of their quirky personalities. And they are, however, like having a toddler for 75 years, because they're a little too smart for their own good sometimes.
And I've heard, and correct me if this is wrong because I'd love to be corrected, that every now and then they bite somebody's nose off.
No, they don't bite your nose off, guys.
Okay, good.
Don't worry.
That's good to know. That's good to know.
Some might, be a little bit more beaky than others, but Cheyenne here we've had her for a long time, and
She hasn't bit anybody's nose off?
Nope, nobody's noses have been taken by Cheyenne. Yeah, you're trying to figure out what's going on. Since everyone is probably wondering, she is a little bit naked, as you can see. And this is what happens when birds are not taken care of properly. If they're bored or neglected, they develop bad habits like plucking their feathers. It's kind of similar to biting your nails. So the problem with that is it becomes a permanent habit, and we've tried everything to get her to stop, but she just continues plucking, but her personality makes up for it. When we got her, she was about this naked. Maybe had a few more feathers, but she was a plucker, unfortunately, when we got her. So we tried everything to get her to stop, but she just continues plucking her feathers, and over time the follicles will eventually die out, so they won't regrow your feathers anymore. So she's getting a little bit more naked with age, but she's happy, she's spoiled, and her personality makes up for it. Yeah, you're a good girl.
Another bird question. I've heard that when they regrow, they're itchy too.
Yeah, they can
and
be.
So they are even more inclined to pluck them than they were the first time.
Yep, and with all of this nakedness here, when one pin feather comes in, it's really exposed. It's not being protected or cushioned by the other feathers around it, so it's more likely to get plucked. So that's not helping her out either, but she's such a cutie.
Yeah.
We love her.
She makes it work.
She does. She was our ring bearer at our wedding, actually.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, I was really hardcore into parrots before I got into reptiles, and I had 2 macaws and an African gray. I've had 5 macaws over the years, but based on, how life goes sometimes, wasn't able to keep all of them, but we did keep her, and we'll always have her, and always have a macaw.
African grays are kind of my dream parrot. What is your thought about macaws versus African grays?
Grays are very smart. They're smarter than macaws. Grays are known for their talking abilities.
Yeah, they can converse, not just mimic.
Mm-hmm. Mine could count to 10. He was very, very smart. They're known to order things off of Alexa because they've heard their owners order things.
So if you have Alexa, an African gray isn't for you.
Don't get a gray. But I mean, grays can be great as long as you socialize them properly. It's kind of like a puppy. Just introduce them to everyone nearby when they're growing up, and they'll be much better off as adults. Macaws are not as bright. You're super cute though, so you get away with it. But they're like clownish. They'll hang from their toes in their cage, or they'll like drop one wing down to kind of show off, or they're just goofy birds and full of personality. But they're a lot of work. If anyone watching wants a pet bird, don't get a macaw. Get a cockatiel. Those are wonderful starter birds, and then see how you like it before moving up in size.
Well, if you do get one and you decide it's not for you, at least it's only like a 70-year commitment.
Yeah, it's only 70 years. Yeah, only the majority of your life you have it. My 4th favorite species of reptile, or animal in general, would be the Cuban false chameleon. These guys are really, really interesting animals. I mean, first off, they're not chameleons. They're anoles. You say anole, right? Not anole.
Well, the dictionary says anole. And I say anole by habit and anole when I'm thinking about it. And I say it's all okay no matter how you want to say it.
I think like the general reptile community has accepted anole as the pronunciation, so that's just what I go with is anole. I did not know the dictionary said anole though.
It was very disappointing to me when I discovered that.
But I love these guys because of how disproportionate they are. I mean, look at their heads. Their heads are too big for their bodies. It's just weird. And they're so cautious in the way they move. Like, they think about every step. Maybe not so much as a true chameleon does, but you can also tell they're not chameleons. They've got toes. They've got toes. They don't have a long, sticky tongue either. They're just anoles, but really cool ones.
Really cool ones. With the cool chameleon eyeballs. That's, I think, where they get us. And, oh, yeah, I love that giant monster super head that they've got. Yeah. What a good observation.
We've bred these a few times. We've hatched several babies, and the babies have an appropriately sized head for their body. It seems like as they age, their head just gets bigger, and the body doesn't grow as fast as the head does. So I think that is why they look like this as adults.
I wish that's how people grew.
These huge heads. Oh my god, so many weird visions in my head right now. They're also very chill lizards. Like for most anoles, like think of a Cuban night anole, which is a similar size.
I have one of those as well.
Yeah, you can't hold it very well, can you?
It's very different. Mine's captive bred, and
That'll
so
help.
Sure. He'll jump onto my hand for food, but then he's out of there, and I certainly wouldn't do something like this with him. Like he'd latch right onto me for that.
Oh, would he?
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, they're just super chill. You can pick them right up. I mean, sometimes they'll have a little bit of a toot with them, and they'll like flare up that dewlap a little bit. But then you pick them up anyway, and they don't care. They just calm right back down.
Yup. Such pleasant beasts.
They are. We
You
have a
have
baby.
such good taste in animals. Oh, I want to see the baby.
Here's the
oh,
baby.
It's getting big.
Yeah, he's growing. He's getting big. Oh,
jump.
they're very graceful
Good
too.
jump.
So this is our male. Those are the 2 females. There's their baby. He is
Hi.
doing really well. He's a male, it turns out, so we can't house them together because they start head bobbing at each other.
Yep.
But
Makes sense.
he is still doing really well, eating all sorts of bugs for us. And I also like that you can tongue feed them.
Oh, yeah. In fact, I have to tongue feed mine some of the time.
Yeah, because they don't really go to the bottom that often to find their food. So in the wild, I assume they're picking up bugs off of the branches they're on.
Yeah, you'd think so.
Yeah, they're very arboreal.
They love them some snails.
They love their snails. Yes, we actually have fed them some snails. And I always thought, and I read, that they roll around the snail in their mouth and they spit out the shell afterwards. But
They ate the whole thing.
mine just ate the whole thing.
Yeah, but they do roll it around like a
Yeah.
caiman lizard.
Yeah,
And that's
they do.
just how snail eaters do.
They do need a little bit of space though, because they are arboreal, so they need a lot of room to kind of move around. Even though they don't move around a lot, they kind of just sit on their branches. But it's still good to offer them that space.
Yep, your enclosure's rad.
Yeah, I
That's a
love
great one.
We had fun building their enclosure.
Yep.
And you can house them together. How
Yep,
great
they
is
love
that?
each other.
Yeah, these 3
Relatively.
adults all live together. You just can't have 2 males together. It's really just the females and 1 male. Really, your claws are so sharp. My 5th favorite species of animal would be garter snakes.
Mm-hmm.
These are really neat snakes. They're one of the only species you can house communally. Most snakes you just have to keep by themselves, otherwise all sorts of problems can arise, but garter snakes actually benefit from being housed with other garters.
I love them. You know, we covered them a little while ago, and they are so underrated and underappreciated, at least in the United States. I think because you walk out in your yard and you see garter snakes, and so you're like, well, what's so cool about that? Well, it turns out that they're just amazing, and they're gloriously beautiful, absolutely some of the prettiest snakes in the world. They're active and interesting and interactive in a way that most snakes are not. They're a lot more like keeping a lizard in most ways. They eat a broad diversity of
That's what I was
different
gonna
things.
mention. Yeah.
And just, I mean, those colors, I just can't get past the colors. And then there are morphs on top of that, and because they're underappreciated, even the morphs are pretty affordable. They're just so perfect.
And they will use, just like the bull snakes, they use a lot of their enclosure, in fact, all of it. And since they're natural baskers, they do best with a basking light on top of their enclosure. And they'll come out and bask underneath it, and you can really try to replicate some of that natural behavior of theirs in captivity. And it's fun to watch them display that natural behavior too, because they're moving around and checking things out. They'll also learn, like, if you're the one who gives them food, they will follow you around the enclosure begging for food. They're just so cool. And they're live bears.
Oh, yeah.
There's just babies that appear when you breed these guys.
They were the first reptile I didn't breed them. It was a wild caught adult female that I had. And all of a sudden, one day I walked in and there were a ton of babies.
Oh my gosh.
This is shocking to me.
Oh look, we have more. We have 4 different species out right now, actually. So we've got the and you can house different species of garter snakes together too. We have all 4 of these together in a big enclosure. They're all girls because we don't want them breeding with each other. Different species together, except for one, and I'll explain that in a second here. We have our common garter snake here on the ends. She goes to programs, that's why she's so friendly. And then also in Clint's hands would be our hybrid garter snake. Her name is Prius. She is a mix between a ribbon snake and a plains garter snake. And she's actually been a mom. We've bred her a few times because her hybrid babies are incredibly friendly and big and good eaters compared to the purebred checkered garter snakes that we've also bred. She is a checkered. And then finally, I have a California red-sided garter snake here. And she doesn't really display the reds that much.
She is very blue, though.
She's very blue, yeah, that's why we really liked her. She's not very red-sided, but she's still pretty with those blues.
Those might be my favorite garters, but it's
Really?
really hard to pick
Yeah.
because
There's so many different
oh,
kinds.
and they're all so beautiful.
Yeah, they're all unique, and
Oh my goodness.
they calm down if they're housed with others, we've found.
That's really a great tip.
Well, like with this red-sided, she was wild and musky and just crazy, really, when we first got her. And then after quarantine, we were able to put her with the other girls, who's handcuffing me at the moment. And then she, within a couple weeks, calmed right down and she was handleable. So it's really neat to see how they behave together in an enclosure.
I'm glad there's somebody else standing up for the radness of garters. Emily, You have great taste in reptiles.
Thanks.
I am.
Reptiles are so much fun.
Oh, yeah. But there's one that I know everybody wants to see, which is probably not one that you'd recommend.
Yes.
Should we check it out?
We probably should.
All right, let's do it. I know that this was not one of the reptiles you would recommend, probably to almost anyone, but it is a stinking rad creature that I know people are going to want to see. So will you tell us a little bit about Rex and how cool she is? And probably also why you wouldn't recommend her for most people.
Yeah, we even ourselves would never want or never wanted an American alligator, but Rex is an American gator, and she is about, what would you say, 4.5 feet?
I'd say she's
Five? Might be 5 now. Yeah. She is 32 years old, though. She should be around 8 to 10 feet long. She was kept by someone else, actually somewhat local to us. She was brought up from the Everglades and kept in a 4-foot wooden box for the first 27 years of her life. And so that caused her to be incredibly stunted, and she still retains all of her baby stripes, too.
That's the craziest thing. She looks like a juvenile alligator.
Yeah. She does.
But she's more than 30 years old.
And that, along with lack of proper diet or being fed often enough anyway, caused her to have a condition called rubber jaw, where the bones in their snout here they become very flexible and rubbery almost, and that's what caused her snout to curve upwards like this. It was much worse when we first got her, and she looked like a duck almost. It was curved right on up.
Is it still soft?
No, it's pretty hardened now. It's actually straightened out considerably since
You've
we got
done
her.
such a good job with it.
She's been fun. Like I said though, we never wanted to have an alligator, but when I was helping out her old owner he has a bonsai tree nursery, I would help him out because I really like trees too. I went into his house one day and saw her in this little box with this little glass window on the front. And I was like, oh my gosh, this alligator, she was 3 feet at the time, this thing needs more space. And she had this little cat litter box with 1/2 inch of water in there to bathe, swim around in. She could kind of curl up. Anyway, I started planting the seed in the guy's ear that, your alligator really needs more space. And after about 6 months, he asked if we just wanted her. And although we didn't necessarily, we wanted her out of that situation. So we took her in, we renovated an entire guest bedroom for her.
Yep.
So she has tons of space now and a heated filtered pool and caves and lights and UVB all across the top of her pool. And she's actually an amazing animal. I mean, I am still in awe every day that, oh my gosh, we have an alligator in our house. But we live in an area where she is legal, so it's all okay legality-wise to have her. And so she's definitely a part of our family. We've had her for about 5 years now, and she's grown considerably.
I'm so happy to see that. You've done such a great job with her.
Thanks.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Honestly, an alligator like this is not nearly as unreasonable as an alligator is, because this is not normal at all, and you would never want to do this to an alligator on purpose.
No.
But super cool that you've done it, and thank you for sharing her with us in addition to the 5 species of reptiles that you enjoy keeping the very most. You have perfect taste. There wasn't one of those that I'm like, oh, come on, Emily, that's terrible. If I had to go through your entire collection and pick out the 5 best, a lot of those would be on the list, and the ones that I might choose instead, it wouldn't be they're way better.
Yeah.
You have such good
Rex,
taste.
come back.
You're a good alligator.
Okay, we're better now. There we go.
Well, as always, like and subscribe. We're super grateful to our patrons at Patreon that allowed us to fly up here to see Emily. We're super thankful to Emily, who's been willing to meet with us again and show off her amazing animals. We always appreciate getting to hang out with you because you're the coolest.
Thanks for having me on your channel.
And this isn't the only video we're filming, because right now, Emily and I are going over to the Rad Zoo, which I seriously thought you were just calling it the Rad Zoo, because I'm really, one of my key missions in life is to bring the word rad back. But no, it's actually called the Rad Zoo, and we're going there right now. So
this is perfect for you. This is your zoo. It was built for you.
It was meant to be. It was. Do you think that is the case? Did they make this just for me?
We're gonna have to go and find out.
I'm down. So stay tuned.
Thanks for watching.
And we hope to see you real soon. Oh, they're just so wonderful.
Oh, your claws are sharp.
They're just so wonderful.
Yeah, really cool lizards.
Oh, and there's a poop.
Oh, and she's pooping.
They poop.
They also poop at the worst times. They always poop when I'm filming. So she's just proving it. Yep. She's gonna keep going. Too late now.
Well played.
Yeah, don't poop, please.
Oh, no, there it comes.
What?
No.
Ugh.
She's got the towel on her head.
Perfect. She hasn't figured out how to get it off. Oh, angry. Rex, you're fine. You're fine. Calm down, Rex.
Oh, good morning.
Oh, so angry. We're so angry. She's wonderful when she gets this spurt of energy out of her system. We're not rolling, Rex. Do you need help?
I think I got her right now.
Okay.
Thankfully, they don't pull their arms off.
We're gonna send Cheyenne off and move back to reptiles.
Non-dinosaur reptiles.
Yay!
Bye, Cheyenne. Wanna grab those two?
Sure.
Oh boy, more!